Time to talk Florida State recruiting for the class of 24 with two big-time players and one five-star in the class of 25 as well.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back into another episode of Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith, and today is another great episode. So thank you for making this your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you find your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Network, your team every day. Today's episode is recruiting centric, which is right down my alley. Going to talk about three key recruits in segment one. Going to talk about a prospect that came to Florida State after going to Mississippi State. And he came to the Noles as a transfer portal guy and the development with that. And that will segue into the third and final segment. We're talking about the Noles and all their winning, how that's changed recruiting and the transfer portal for that matter, because so much has changed in recruiting. Things go a lot faster. And Florida State's already seen a little bit of an uptick with several different kids they've been looking at. And it's going to be a lot of fun over the next couple of years. So I'm looking forward to it, and you should be as well. Jase Medical. Everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jase Medical offers the Jase Case. The Jase Case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use and gives you a peace of mind. Go to jasemedical.com and use code LOCKEDON for an additional $20 off. So this is what we're really trying to do here. We're trying to find a way to explain all the different things that Florida State's got going on in 30 minutes. So we're just going to hit it. 3 players in segment one. Number 1 player, KJ Bolden, 5-star, Buford High School out of Georgia. He's committed to the Noles, but he is going to go and visit Georgia. He's taken an official there already, so this is going to be an unofficial for their game against South Carolina. He is also going to see Auburn coming up pretty soon. He's taking an official there as well for the Georgia game. And then at some point, he's going to come to Florida State. He's already been for an unofficial. He's got to get an official visit in. I'm curious to see what he says with all of this. But like I was messaging with him earlier today, just talking about Buford, the high school he's at, not really recruiting. He's a pretty laid-back kid, and he really likes people, very outgoing. I don't know if he's going to do interviews per se after the visits, but it'll be interesting. And for those that are just curious about it, I think that he's going to be a signing day guy for a final decision. I thought that for a long time. I know that he's committed to Florida State, but in today's world, 5 stars hold all the leverage. What are you going to do? Tell them not to visit? If you do, there's a pretty good chance they're not going to your school anyway. That's just kind of how the game works. But I haven't talked to him about it directly, just to be very clear. That being stated, he's an elite player as a free safety, as a receiver, and he could play corner too. It's whatever he wants to do. It's been a while since Florida State's constantly went in to states like Georgia and gotten a lot of good players. But the last few classes have seen that, and this has been the culmination of it. And we're going to talk more about that in segment 3. And I think it's going to continue. This is just one example. KJ's a great kid, great player. And a lot of kids are coming like Cam Davis, etc. Luke Krummelhawk. The state of Georgia has been pretty darn good to the Florida State Seminoles. Also of note, LJ McCray, state of Florida, Daytona Beach mainland. He took an unofficial visit to Miami last weekend. He's got a Florida State official coming up for the Virginia Tech game, which is the 7th of October. Out of the programs that he's been looking at, Florida, Florida State, Georgia, and Miami, those are primarily his 4. The Noles are the only one left that he hasn't taken an official to. That's very important. An official visit is way more important than an unofficial because you can actually pay for everything, and it's more concentrated academically, socially, and athletically. So I'm curious to see what he has to say. He's not the most talkative kid with the media, being kind. I think I'm going to go up and see him Friday, weather permitting, because they play Rains High School. Daytona hosts them. That'll be a pretty darn good game. A lot of talent on the field. But I'm not really sure he's going to say much. He's just not that guy. But Florida State is right there. Florida and Georgia, depending on who you talk to, are favorites. But he just visited Miami, and he's got an official visit coming up to Florida State. My experience in the recruiting world tells me this is anybody's ball game. Again, just like with KJ, This is probably going to end up being a signing day deal. And I do not care if he commits to Florida State or any other school prior to that. He's going to take phone calls. That's the way it is. And he's another kid that's an elite prospect. There's a few schools that I know think that his upside as a 3 technique is as high as any recruit in the nation. So keep that in mind. The other kid that I want to talk about is also an elite player, a 5-star, but in the class of 2025. That kid would be Armondo Blount. He's at Central High School in Miami. Florida State has been all over him. He might be the best defensive lineman in the class of 25. He went to the Florida State LSU game. He's been to Florida State before, and Norvell and their entire staff, along with numerous other staffs for that matter, have been recruiting Armondo very hard. I went up and saw him in Ocala when his Central team went up there to play Vanguard about a month ago. That game went well for him. He had 6 sacks. I mean, if you can get 6 sacks in any game, I don't care who you're playing, that's good. But Vanguard's got an elite player at quarterback, and to tackle him 6 times is one thing because he's a very athletic kid. He's going to USF to play DB. I think you're in pretty good shape. But Armondo's upside is through the roof. Florida State, Ohio State, Miami, you name it, Auburn, Oklahoma, you name a school, they've offered him. So he's a tremendous football player. Miami and Florida State are the 2 teams that I'm hearing right now are the most likely. I've heard Florida State, I've heard Miami, whatever, but it's early. Just like with the other 2 kids, I said an early commitment, especially with a kid that's an underclassman. Again, 25, not 24. That's the class he's in. So Armondo Blount is a junior. That is a young man that is not going to sign for another year or so. Florida State is in the mix, and I'm very curious to see, because he dropped the top 5, that it's going to dwindle even more now, or is it going to go back up? I wouldn't be surprised if it added a little bit. But colleges are coming after him hard, and the 6'4", 250-pound kid is taking it well. Quiet guy, but Florida State is right in there. Before I go into segment 2, the transition we're making here is one that's very unique. We just talked about 3 elite kids, no doubters, coming out of the high school ranks that everybody wanted. Now, there's also the perception that these kids are automatically going to make it. That's why I said no doubters, right? Well, that's really not true. And the next kid is that point, and it's why I made him segment 2. Jerrian Jones for Florida State is one of the better DBs in the country, especially as a nickel corner. We'll talk a little bit about that. But he first went to Mississippi State before he went to the Noles. It's a great story, and it's an explanation of how Norvell and his staff, I mean, they've just found the guys and developed them as well as really anybody in the country. So while you want to get the kids like Armondo Blount, certainly, and you want to get the kids like KJ Bolden, no doubt, LJ McCray, absolutely, you still got to develop other kids. Jarrian was one of those guys. He's come a long way, and I want to talk about his stats, what he means to Florida State, and how he can impact the season in segment 2. First up, we're going to talk a little bit about Jase Medical. The Jase case provides 5 life-changing antibiotics for emergency use. All it takes to get a Jase case is fill out a simple online form. In some cases, jump on quick with a call with one of our board-certified physicians. Get ongoing care from our physicians on any treatment-related questions. Doctor created, doctor recommended. Everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jase Medical offers the Jase case. The Jase case provides 5 life-saving emergency use and gives you a peace of mind so that you are not just hoping that you have access to medical in an emergency situation. Jase Medical makes sure that you have the medication in hand. Jase Medical is simple. They handle everything from the online evaluation to licensed pharmacy medication, delivery, and ongoing consultation and care. Don't get caught unprepared. Save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jase Medical, plus an additional $20 off by using code LOCKEDON at checkout at jasemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com, promo code LOCKED ON. All right. So the first thing here, Jarrian is a great story, and this is why college football, for me specifically, is so unique. I talk about 4- and 5-star kids on numerous shows. websites and stuff that I work with and people I talk to, all the different networks, 247, On3, Rivals, we all converse about the elite players all the time. But we also all agree that it's a blast to see a kid that we weren't sure about develop and become a big-time player. Not too many schools right now beyond the Noles are at the level they are with taking kids that were 3 stars or transfers or somebody that didn't work out somewhere else, taking them all together and help them build a unit and be a part of a roster that's not just good, but really good. Florida State has earned its top 5 ranking. Jarrian's one of those players. Can Florida State continuously do that? We don't know. It's the transfer portal's pretty new, but there's nobody that's curbed the market quite like the Noles. So what has he done? Who is he? All those fun things. Well, let's look at him a little bit from a different perspective. Number one, what is a nickel corner? What does it do? Why does it matter? How does Florida State use it? All those fun things. Number one, a nickel corner is the guy that's usually in the slot, playing against some twitchy kid on part of the downs. But then again, on another down, you might have a tight end in your face. It is very hard because you don't know, regardless of their personnel package anymore. It used to be kind of a giveaway, but no longer, who you're going to be going up against. And he's not the biggest guy in the world to be taking on some tight end, but no DB is. Jerrian's listed about 6 foot, 190 pounds, give or take. That's not going to be good enough to go up against 250-pound tight end, but he's figured out how to do it. Here are some of his stats, just as a kind of a point. This year alone, he's got 6 tackles and a pick. In the entire season last year, he had 19 tackles and a pick, 4 pass breakups. So he's already ahead of pace, and he's been doing things like the interception he had was a tremendous one. He's already been doing things to help them take away those third down throws. Florida State's defense is more efficient, and the experience factor. This is something, again, that I've said, I don't even know how many times on this show, when we talk about the incredible nature of what Florida State has done with development. Norvell's staff, it doesn't really matter who it is, Odell Hagens or whatever you want to do. You have so many guys that have been good, but they've just incrementally gotten better. And that means you believe in the system. I'll probably talk about this all year long, especially if the Noles continue at this climb, because it's just players believing. You can coach, but if they're not taking it in, does it really matter? Not really. You have to believe in what you're doing, whether it's your job, whether it's your marriage, whether it's your personal business. These kids are buying in, and Jarrian's a great case for that. Florida State has around 15 transfers that are in the starting lineup for offense and defense combined. But he doesn't get any acclaim. That's a good thing. Why would you say that? When corners, especially slot corners, are talked about a lot, that usually means something bad happened. It's kind of like the punter. When the punter's talked about a lot, that means he took too long to get it off and it got blocked, something like that. Slot corners go up against some of the most athletic college athletes in the country. And even though they don't know what direction those kids are going, what route they're going to run, they're expected to shadow them in some capacity, zone or man. That is not an easy task. Stick to the plan, learn from your coaches, be a part of the cohesive unit. That is basically, in a nutshell, what Florida State's transfers have done. Jarrian is just the guy I used today, and he's been rocking. He's like ACC or National Defensive Back of the Week or whatever it is. He's probably got 20 awards after the way he's played. He's really good. But nobody knew about this kid. Again, he went to Mississippi State out of high school. He's from a high school in Mississippi. That state doesn't get the national coverage that it deserves by any measurement. It has one of the highest per capita rates for kids going to the NFL in the country. So keep that in mind. And it's one of the reasons the Noles recruit there pretty heavy. Anyway, the point is still this. He came to the Noles in 20. He's continuously got better. He's had some down moments. Some Florida State fans were down on him, but he didn't give up. That's been part of the climb that they talk about at Florida State. It's the effort. Believe in yourself over the naysayers. If you don't do that, you sure as heck aren't going to be a part of a unit, and starting for it, by the way, that is now ranked number 1 in the nation in so many different categories that relate to winning. And I'm just talking about the effort category. We can get into stats. They're top 20 and all kinds of things. But name a team that's ahead of Florida State in effort in the way they've played this year. I mean, they played just as hard at the end of the LSU game after the game was in hand as they did when they were behind. This is a team that plays play to play. Jarrian is a big part of that. And I'm just glad to see that because we don't see it enough in college football anymore. And I'm not just saying it because this is a Florida State podcast. Just truly, there are a lot of teams that throw in the towel, and you can see the body language. You can see a team when they get way up, know the game's pretty much over, not care. Florida State doesn't. Jerrian doesn't. And that's how you win and build a program. Not enough teams do that, and I'm being ultra kind. Last point on him, and then we're going to talk about the culmination of recruiting, the transfer portal, and all the winning that Florida State is doing over the last year or so. And we're obviously building here in the year 2023, and they're expected to make the playoff now. We're going to talk about the uptick in recruiting that is expected by me and why I mentioned the three guys I did in segment 1 and segment 3, because it's very, very important that Florida State capitalize here. From talking to a few of my friends, I expect that to be the case, but it's not a guarantee. You have to earn it. And sometimes teams let things get away from them, get a little cocky, but I really don't think that's going to be the case with Florida State. College football kickoff live. We will cover playoff implications, the conference rivalry games, go in depth like Locked On can, including insight and analysis from a stable of Locked On college hosts covering their teams, just like I do for Florida State. And next week when they play at Clemson, I guarantee you I'm going to be on this show. Every Friday, it goes live on YouTube, this channel, or any other Locked On channel. If you go between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern time, you can go live and see what these guys have to say, see what these gals have to say across from Oregon to Miami to Boston College to A&M, everywhere in between. There's going to be something to learn about. And it's really a fun thing to do because we just compare opinions. We talk and we text and stuff off air, but this is on the air. This is what we really think. Here's what's going to happen. Playoff implications, talking about rivalries, injuries, big games, the matchups. Please check it out. Locked On, the Locked On's college football kickoff live, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. The other part of the show that's fun is that we're just honest. There's a lot of shows, by the way, with these. I don't think the honesty is really there. I've watched a ton of kickoff shows over my life. It's not always the same. Speaking of honest, Gametime is the place for last minute ticket deals. And I can tell you why based on what I did last year. I waited too long to get tickets. I had one app that I had on my phone. I was lazy, didn't check other apps like Gametime, and I would have saved money. I spent about $40-$50 too much on a game. That's on me. Don't be like me. Forget planning months in advance. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedies, whatever it is you're looking for, they will have something for you. The Gametime guarantee means that you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section or row for less, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Snag the tickets without the stress with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Segment 3. This is the fun part because it's just, here's the information we have. Let's speculate a little bit and what should be. But we're talking about recruiting. There are no guarantees in recruiting. I can guarantee you that there are no guarantees because I see things all the time. I have kids tell me where they're going. They go up to the podium and pick another school. That's why I don't make many predictions anymore. That this world has gone crazy on that. But with Florida State starting the way that it has, with Norvell and his staff doing their due diligence, and obviously they can evaluate. I trust their 3-star evaluations as much, if not more, than any other in the country, Nick Saban included, because of how well they've built this unit and made it a team. And I think that the transfer portal is still going to be a major part of Florida State moving forward. But each week I see more and more reason to kind of bring this subject back up. I expect a downtick in total numbers, not necessarily quality, and I'd be surprised if there was, in transfers starting next year. There may be, like, if you sign 10 or 15 in a year, whatever, it may be 7 to 10 because they're doing better with high school recruiting. One of the big threats that Florida State had to overcome with recruits is, what have you done for me lately? I mean, from 18 to 21, Florida State just wasn't very good. They had losing records. And then in 22, they exploded. They get to 10-3. They have something to build on. Then they come out this year and just put the hammer down on LSU. By the way, you don't see any of those LSU fans on my YouTube feed anymore. They don't comment anymore. They left. It's amazing. They were talking a lot of junk there for a while. Not so much anymore. So Florida State has all of this going for it. And what does that mean? Well, it means one thing. They can start picking a little bit more. Now, I'm not saying this is Bobby Bowden 88 to 95 recruiting. That was a whole nother level. But they're starting to trend in the right direction. It's a much different world that we live in recruiting, because the state of Florida used to be 75 to 85% of the top players stayed in state. It's flipped. About 40% of the top players. It's just the society we live in. And for those of you on YouTube, it's because of this as much as anything. iPhones and Galaxies and all that. Kids just learn more. They want to experience different things. You're not going to keep as many kids at home, but that doesn't mean you still can't win. Florida State is recruiting Texas, Mississippi, Georgia, North Carolina, the D.C. area. They got the Holmes kid, the defensive lineman that's really good out of Gonzaga. Hey, I'm good with it. That's a kid that could play in the NFL, and he's underrated, surprisingly, even though he's from that really good program. If they come, we're good. Just don't expect as many kids from the Sunshine State to necessarily play for, well, really any of them, Canes, Gators, or Noles anymore. It's just a different world. But they're going to sign more elite high school players and probably a few more in general, and not take as many transfers. And I think the reason is twofold. Number one, they're going to get better players than they used to out of the high school ranks now that they've gotten over the hump on the field. And two, it's just something that coaches, I think in general, from the ones I've talked to, would rather do if they can. If they can sign in a big-time player, not just a recruit, but a big-time player, they'll take him over a kid that's gone to another program and then transfer. It's going to be case by case, and it's not going to be an overnight transformation. I think each year, Norvell and his staff will be able to kind of like nature just finds its way, I guess. But this roster has matured, and it's gotten better each year. Now they can be pickier. I think that's just the easier way to do it. With high school kids, if they don't find a position that they do well with, whatever reason, out of the high school ranks, they might go a little heavier in the portal that year for that position. But overall, I think you're going to see 7 to 10 transfers starting next year, and definitely for the year after that, because Florida State's going to hit the home run with in-state recruiting a little bit more, maybe a kid like Blount, whatever it is. And they'll also do better in Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, get not just 3-star kids like Jarrian, but they're going to get some 4- and 5-star kids. Florida State's recruiting is going to go much broader and much higher. It's just my opinion, but winning matters. Seeing this product on the field, it's not that hard to sell. Every time I watch a clip or go back and watch some film or see something on Twitter on my feed, I think the same thing. And that's why I wanted to bring this up, but from a little different perspective and a little deeper. Again, it'll be a slow transition. More high school kids going up, fewer transfer portal kids, so that's going down. Tomorrow's episode, we're going to have a little bit of fun with that. We're going to just talk a little bit about college football. We're going to do a little recruiting, but it's going to be a fun episode again. Everybody be safe. Have a great day. Thank you very much.